cuties, I'm Brittany with Stitches of Love Quilting, and in this video tutorial we are going to put together our applique units for sewing machine applique for block 5 of our Christmas Lane block of the month quilt. And this is the cute little snowman. He's adorable. Let me show you up close how cute he is. So what we're going to do is use our pattern to build our applique units, and then you'll be able to use your pattern and the stitch guide to stitch everything. So first up, of course, we have our perfect stack. And the first thing I'm going to do is turn my light pad on. And I'm actually going to take my placement guide out of my pattern. And I am going to take, there's 2 of each of your white pieces in your kit. I'm going to take one of my piece number 10. And I am going to mark 2 dots for my French knots for the eyes. And I'm going to trace this cute little snowman's mouth. So you can use a chalk pencil or you can use a Pigma. I'm going to use my Pigma pen. I'm just going to do a little small dot in the center of his eyes. And then I'm going to slowly trace his little mouth. And you're only going to put this on one of your 2 pieces because we're going to double layer the white like we've been doing every month in this quilt. And so you don't need to put this on both pieces, just the one that's going to be on top. So get your pen just to marking along and make sure you hold your piece nice and steady. And you just want a very thin line. And so this is the accent lines traced on our little snowman. Look how different the piece looks when it's not part of the snowman. So I'm going to set those aside, and now we're ready to build our applique units. So what I'm going to do is take my full-size placement guide and place it, underneath my fusing mat. And then on top of that, underneath that, I have my glass mat and my light pad. So what we're going to do first is build our applique unit 1. So you will look in your pattern and find out what applique unit pieces you need to build. So first up, we're going to build unit 1, which is pieces 1 through 9. And then second unit we'll build will be pieces 10 through 15. So basically we're going to build his body and the snow he's sitting on. And then we'll build his face and hat together. And then we'll put that on the background fabric. So again, you have 2 pieces of your white pieces so that you have a nice lined fabric. Anytime you're working with like a white or very light color and you don't want the background fabric to show through, simply cut out 2 of the same piece and you double line it that way. So I am going to simply fuse these together just lightly. You'll do your final fusing once it's on your background fabric before you sew. Piece number 2 again is a white piece. And there's 2 of them. And we'll just get this right in place. And once you get your applique units built, it's so fast to do it, but then you're ready to sew already. So you open your box and in just a few minutes of prep work, you're ready to sew. So I am going to iron where these overlap. I want to be careful not to overexpose my pieces. You don't want to iron too long because eventually the heat and bond light can quit sticking. I personally haven't ever had that happen, but just be cognizant to only iron for a few seconds, enough to get it to stick into a unit. So now we're going to put our 2 little arms in place like so. And then our next piece, let's get him to lay flat. There we go. Now we're going to put down, that was 3 and 4. Now number 5 is this cute little print, this little gingham plaid type color that is the bottom of his little sweater. So get that in place where it's overlapping. There we go. I'm going to give this a little press where it's connecting. Now we're going to put this really cute shirt on. We're just building our snowman in just a matter of minutes. And then I'll give this a press where it's overlapping. And now we have our 3 stars. So the stars, even though of course you have your placement guide you can see through, it's easy to see where the pieces line up on the edge because this top and left edge are an exact match. And then you have your center star And then this one on the right lines up exactly on the curve of the sweater. Perfect, just like so. So see, in just a matter of minutes, you have the first applique unit built. And now we will set that aside. And we're gonna build this cute little snowman face. It's like building a snowman without having to be out in the snow. Although it's hot in Florida right now as I do this, I wouldn't mind a little bit of cooler weather. You know, when it's cold here in Florida, I'm always like, oh, I can't wait for summer. And then the second it's like 89, 90, 91, 92 degrees, I'm like, oh gosh, it's so hot. We just can never be happy, can we? Actually, we're very lucky to live in Florida. We have great weather. So now I want to tell you, we're going to put down both pieces of number 10. That's the first. We're doing now the second unit, which is 10 through 15. And with number 10, remember, we drew our face on one, so that's going to be the second one that we put down. And this is not a perfect oval. You'll notice there's kind of like a little squish on one side. That is the top right of his little head. Let me move this over just a smidge. There we go. And then you're going to put your second one right on top. Now remember, the reason we used a pigment pen is because you can't use a friction pin. When we iron, it would disappear. So, little tip. And we'll give this a quick press. Now it's time for his little carrot nose right in the center. And then we're going to start building our hat. So we'll put down the big background of his hat first. And then when it comes to, whoops, I have that turned where I'm hitting the on and off button with my own hand. There we go. So I'm going to iron where this overlaps. And then when we put these two cheddar colored stripes on, the left and right sides line up exactly with the left and right of our hat. So we know when we've got it at the right spot. See how that's perfect here on the left, perfect here on the right? Give this a press. And now the final stripe of the hat, right like so. Perfect, so cute. They don't touch over here on the left, but they come pretty close to each other, as you can see on the placement guide. And now, a hat is not complete without a pom-pom in the winter, so our snowman has his pom-pom hat. And we'll give this a press where it overlaps. And now we're ready to put it on our background fabric. So I'm actually going to roll to the side and grab my fabric. I didn't have it out right in front of me. So we will take this. I'm going to set this to the side. And for a moment, I'm going to pull out my Steady Betty, press my fabric. Just, you want to get the wrinkles out and then starch accordingly to how you've been starching through the whole process, because you want to keep your blocks consistent, right? So if you've been starching from the beginning, then starch now. I'm just ironing quickly, so I happen to not be starching. Really, I'm not starching because my iron is dirty, and I know if I starch, you're going to see my dirty iron marks, and I need to clean the iron. I'm telling on myself. So now I will set that aside. We're going to take our placement guide, remember, just like we do every month, put it right on top of your glass mat. For your background fabric, where you have fabric going past it, I'll show you. So see, you want to make sure your fabric is going past that 8-inch trim line on all 4 sides. And then we're simply going to put our 2 units in place. So from my fusing mat, I'm going to grab 1 unit, applique unit 1. Look at this. And we put it right in place. Look at that, perfect. I'm going to give this guy just a little bit of a press. And remember, I like to do my final pressing on my Steady Betty. I'm just getting it stuck enough, if you will. And now, look at how cute his little face is, y'all. I mean, is he not the cutest? I love him. This whole quilt is just too cute. Thank you to Amy and to Julie for making this for us, so we all get to enjoy doing it. And then we'll give this a press down. And look at that. In just a matter of minutes, you have opened your box and you're ready to sew. So let's give this a press onto our background fabric. And then I'm going to show you the one I've already stitched and just talk about some stitch tips for you. So I like to do my final pressing, as always, on my study buddy because I feel like my little guide really gets stuck on there then. And again, you don't need to go for very long, just 2 to 3 seconds across. There we go. And then in just a minute, you'll be ready to sew. There we go. So cute. I love it. Adorable, adorable, adorable. So again, you'll put your stabilizer, that Sulky Terry Easy stabilizer underneath while you stitch. Let me pull out the one that I stitched already. So you will use your pattern to give you your guide. You know what color you're stitching and you know the order. So very helpful, but I'm just gonna now give you a little bit of stitch tips. Oh, we forgot to put the heart on. You guys are probably like, Brittany, you're missing a piece. I almost forgot that. Get your placement guide back out real fast. Oh no, where did I put it? Right here. Look at that, I almost forgot the piece because I wasn't reading the pattern. I'm just doing it from memory. So put it back on your placement guide. You can put this back on your light pad if you need to, but I can see through the fabric just fine. And put your little heart on, number 16 is what this piece number is. Okay, now you're ready to sew. Crisis averted. We didn't forget the piece. So now we're gonna talk about the stitch tips. So I use, on the embroidery machine, I use a 2.5 by 2.5 stitch width and length. And then Julie on her sewing machine, every sewing machine to me is a little different. She uses a 2 by 2, and essentially we get a pretty similar effect. I'm going to tell you a few tips for the stitch width and length on yours, no matter what you're using on the majority of your pieces. When you come down to the 2 stripes on your hat, you're gonna wanna take your stitch width and length down because you don't want, see, even my stitches touch a little bit here in the most narrow part. You don't want to use as long of a stitch here as you would say like on your circle or on your snowman body, because you don't want all of your stitches to totally just overlap. It's okay if they come close in some parts, but you can see I took it down a lot smaller so that you get a better effect here. Another tip, if you look right here at the top, see I have a normal stitch length all the way to here. Let me point with this, maybe you can see a little bit better. So normal stitch width and length all the way to here. And then from this stitch all the way down to here, I made my stitch a lot shorter. I took it down to a 1.8 or a 1.6. I'm not sure which one. Just, you know, practice on your machine. You know the sizes of your stitches. But simply just take your stitch down right here because I didn't want to not secure my applique piece right here. You could just straight stitch if you want, but I didn't want to lose my look of my buttonhole stitch. So I took it down to just a really small bite in right here so that my piece is still secured. When it comes to over here on the side, I did the same thing. Not quite as small, but I did keep it shorter because the angle of the piece, I didn't want to stitch onto my little cheddar stripe, right? Here, I was able to keep it fully the normal stitch bite in, not a problem at all. And throughout the rest of it, it's completely the same. Like I was fine over here keeping it the same bite in. If you want to take it down a little bit right there, you could. I got pretty close there. And then another little tip, just we've gotten a lot of email questions specifically on this quilt because a lot of you are worried that you're losing your applique. No, you're not. See this right here is your trim line, right? So you're actually going to trim this block right up on the edge of this snow. And on most blocks, I think, have a snow barrier on this one. You're gonna trim all the way up to that, just like your applique placement line says. And then this inner line right here, it's actually 7.5 inches. That is gonna be your seam line. Like when you sew your sashing at the end to your blocks and then you sew your blocks together, your seam is gonna come here. So that's another reason that you don't need to stitch the bottom and sides of this. You don't need to stitch into your seam allowance. You can, certainly, if you want to. It won't hurt anything. But you don't need to because this is going to completely be secured in your seam with your sashing. I'll show you on the picture of the quilt. See, so the white goes into your seams on the bottom and sides, and then any of the pieces that have applique going all the way to the trim line, same thing, that applique is gonna get stuck into the actual seams. So I think that's all of my tips for today. By block 5, you're probably feeling like a sewing machine applique expert. I hope you're having so much fun stitching. I can't believe that we're already at block 5. I feel like we just started this block of the month. I hope you've enjoyed stitching all of them and are looking forward to your next month. I can't remember what block 6 is, but I know it's adorable. It might be Mrs. Claus, or maybe she's block 9. I don't know. It's a surprise. It's going to be fun to stitch. And again, if you're watching this and you're not a member of the Christmas Lane Block of the Month, please don't hesitate to join. It's a lot of fun. This video tutorial was for sewing machine applique, but we also have it available for embroidery machine applique if you use your embroidery machine to make your projects. And as always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us through our support module on our website. We're always happy to help, and happy stitching.